What happened and what didn't happen so far this year in the Ohio Senate. A mid-year legislative update with Minority Leader Joe Schiavoni next on Ohio in Focus. Welcome to Ohio in Focus, the program that brings state government to you. I'm your host, Mike Rao. With the Ohio Senate on summer break, we are joined by Senate Minority Leader Joe Schiavoni to talk about what's happened in the first half of 2014 and take a look ahead at what will be on the legislative agenda for the second half of the year. Senator, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike.
Well, one thing that's been in the news a lot that kind of bridges the gap between what's happened so far this year and what might happen later in the year is the issue of charter schools. There's been a lot of stuff in the news lately about issues at charter schools, problems in Dayton and Cincinnati and other parts of the state. This has been an issue that you've talked about and introduced legislation on quite a bit.
Sure.
Why do you think, or what kind of oversight do we need? Where is the problem and how can we address it?
Well, I think we need to put public schools, charter schools at the same level of accountability and transparency. I think it's real important for taxpayers to know where their dollars are going and how they're being spent, not only at the school level at a charter school, but for the sponsors as well, because the sponsors are the ones that are running these schools. And at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is provide a good education for everybody. And by having all of these bad actor charter schools, they're really putting our kids at risk. And so we got to make sure that we are holding them accountable. And I think that if we increase the accountability and the transparency, that those bad actors will go away, because they'll know that all the things that they're doing will be found out and very visible. And I'm hoping that we get that done very soon, because every day that we wait, we're really harming our young people, and we're supposed to be giving kids every opportunity to succeed, not hurting them and holding them back.
You have two bills, Senate Bill 190, which was introduced last year, and then
Correct.
Senate Bill 329, which
That's
you
right.
introduced this year. Could you just give a quick summary of what those bills would do?
Yeah, 190 is a very broad bill dealing with not only the accountability and transparency for the sponsors of charter schools and the schools themselves, but also dealing with some teacher issues and some inner workings. And like I said, that bill would make charter schools do everything that public schools do so that they're on a level playing field. Now, the second bill is a much more limited bill, only dealing with the transparency and accountabilities for those school sponsors, so that at least we know where those dollars are going when those dollars funnel from the taxpayer's pocket into the state and over to the charter schools, so that people understand what's going on with these schools. I don't have a problem with charter schools in general if they're providing a better education than the public schools that the kids are sent to. But when they're providing a disservice to students and they're just kind of being thrown up with no accountability or transparency, that's a problem for me. Because at the end of the day, there's somebody making money off kids, and that kid is not benefiting. And so we're not supposed to be in the business of helping folks make money off kids. We're supposed to be in the business of helping educate kids and making it fair.
And your bills would have an annual audit by the state auditor in both cases. Now,
Right.
You introduced these bills, and you've yet to have a hearing on either one, correct?
Yeah, I'm a little frustrated with it. I'm continuing to work as hard as I can to work with Chairwoman Lehner in the Senate to make sure that we get some hearings on these bills. I got constituents, not only constituents in my district, but Ohioans that are coming forward, teachers coming forward talking to me about some bad things that are going on in their charter schools that they taught at, parents telling me horror stories about what's going on in a charter school that they sent their child to. This isn't just a Youngstown, Mahoning Valley thing, although that is a problem with us. It's a statewide issue that needs to be dealt with now. As you recently saw in Dayton and Cincinnati, what's going on with charter schools in those areas. Very, very serious problem. I hope we can move quickly. Senator Lehner said that this is a project that we're going to work on over the summer. I don't know who we are. I haven't been reached out to about that, but I'm hoping that we can continue to work together.
With so much attention focused on charter schools at this very moment, does that give you more hope that perhaps something will be done this year?
It does. The auditor, Auditor Yost has also said that he believes that there needs to be some additional action taken. I think everybody's saying that we need to do something, but the something hasn't been done, so we got to make that happen ASAP. And I'm just pushing it. I'm trying to do it in a respectful way and actually show people what's going on in some of these charter schools. I mean, we are not, you wouldn't believe some of the I don't want to say terrible, but some of the very, very difficult situations that these young people are facing in these charter schools are not being taught properly. And at the end of the day, somebody's making bucks, and that's not what we're supposed to do.
Let's talk a little bit about one of the big things that was done in the legislature so far this year, and that's the what the governor calls the mid-biennium review. It used to be called a corrections budget, but now it's called the MBR. That passed the legislature this year, dealing with budgeting issue, income tax cuts, and different things were included in that kind of whole bundle. There was some veteran stuff, education stuff. You characterized the MBR, though, as missed opportunities. Why do you say that?
Well, we could have done a lot more. You know, we're talking about helping kids learn, so we need to spend some money on that. And we cut public schools. I mean, that's not what we want to do. We should not be cutting public education. We did cutting public education at the same time we cut local governments, therefore putting a lot of communities at risk with their safety forces. So we have cut public schools, we have cut local funds, and at the end of the day, the governor is touting this rainy day fund and all these tax cuts. And so these tax cuts really aren't savings to people because there's been so many tax increases along the way that nobody's really saving money. You know, we made levies more expensive to pass in the state. We took away the homestead exemption from, you know, our senior citizen population, at the same time funneling more money back to the wealthiest Ohioans. It just doesn't make sense to me. So again, you gotta say it like it is and call people out when they need to be called out. And this is not something that is helping every Ohioan. It's just not. If you go talk to middle-class Ohioans, they're not going to feel that huge impact and pickup from the extra $40, $50, $60 they got back in their income tax when they're spending it all different ways with levies and with increased sales tax. They're just not seeing that benefit, and I think that's where we missed the boat.
Another thing that happened this year, for the first time in a couple of years actually, is a capital bill. And one of the things we did related to that was putting on the ballot, which the citizens of Ohio approved, a renewal of the State Capital Improvement Program, which puts money into infrastructure. Now, you voted for that when it came through the Senate, but you said we should have done more.
Yeah, I mean, there was the ability to focus more resources on our bridges, on our roads, you know, not only putting people to work, but making sure that we have the infrastructure in place for additional jobs. I mean, when people come, businesses come here, they want to see strong infrastructure. They want to see strong communities. They want to see strong schools and good schools for their children when they're thinking about relocating. So all of these things have to happen in order to gain those jobs and prosper economically. And I don't think that we did everything that we possibly could.
I want to touch on a couple more things before we run out of time. One is elections and voting. This year, the legislature moved to eliminate what's called Golden Week, that first week of the early voting period in which Ohioans could both register to vote and cast an absentee ballot. That is now the subject of some litigation. What's your thoughts on what's been done this year in the legislature on voting?
Well, we're taking away people's ability to vote rather than trying to foster an environment that gives everybody the opportunity to vote that wants to. I think that, you know, we live in the United States of America. We're supposed to encourage people to vote, not take away their ability to vote. And I know there's been a big lawsuit filed against Secretary of State Husted and Attorney General DeWine regarding this issue that's going to get a lot of attention and coverage coming up. I mean, I have no idea why anybody would want to eliminate voting days in Golden Week. It's not a financial drain. It's a simple political ploy to make sure that you get some people not to vote, and that's the situation that we're facing today rather than encouraging people to vote.
As we look ahead to the second half of the year, obviously charter schools may be an issue that the legislature looks at very seriously. Another one that's kind of unresolved from this year and really tracing back to the last year is what might happen with a severance tax. There's been an ongoing debate, you know, a lot between the governor and the Republicans that control both chambers on what the severance tax should look like if we have one. What's your view on this issue?
Well, I think we need to have one, and I think it needs to be comparable to other states. And I think that with that being said, the money needs to go back to the locals in the specific areas where the drilling is occurring. And because I live in that area, I live in one of those areas, and roads get busted up, there's noise problems, there's issues. There are some negatives that come with oil and gas drilling. You got to make sure the water is safe. You got to make sure that we don't have earthquakes. All of these things need to be addressed, and unfortunately it takes money to do that. So every day that we don't have a severance tax is another day that we're putting people at risk. And so I think that we need to get that money allocated and move that forward so that we can really help the locals with the issues. I mean, it's great. We're putting more people to work, and that's a positive thing. But we got to make sure that we are properly funding some of the risks in dealing with those.
All right, Senator, thanks for joining us once again.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Well, you can follow Senator Schiavoni and the entire Ohio Senate Democratic Caucus on Facebook, Twitter, and at ohiosenate.gov. Thanks for watching Ohio in Focus.